Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Morning Breath live stream. I'm your host, Jeremy Tennell, systems designer and coherence coach, and this is week 4, day 16 of our 14-week journey entitled The Path of Personal Transformation. Today, we are discussing awareness through activation, and all week, our theme is going to be self-regulation. So we've covered, in the first week, we covered self-awareness. And in the second week, our theme was, or beg your pardon, first week was orientation. Our second week was self-awareness. And our third week was, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. This week is going to be a weekly theme of self-regulation. So we're going to be talking about tools for the most part all week. Most of us believe that we are making conscious decisions throughout the day. But the reality is we are in a constant changing lived experience. Much of our behavior is not deliberate, it's automatic. It is a pattern. It's conditioned within us over time and through our experiences and through our teaching and education from our parents and our K-12 education. It happens very quickly in our bodies, often faster than we recognize it. What we call reaction is not actually a single moment. It's a whole sequence of moments that are occurring and happening, each one with a space that exists in between. When a signal enters our system, our bodies respond, our minds interpret, and our behavior follows by the time we become aware. We're already in motion and our reactions are already moving before we can do anything about it. Activation is the starting point of that sequence. It is the moment your system detects the tension that you're feeling or the threat that you might sense around you, or the uncertainty of a circumstance, or the discomfort that you are feeling moving into a situation. And that begins to prepare a response within us before we can even cognitively think about it. Activation is often called triggering, but it isn't a problem. It is a function. It is our system doing what it was designed to do: scan, assess, and protect. But the challenge is not the activation itself. The challenge is the unnoticed activation, the automatic response that we're engaging in. See, when activation goes unnoticed, patterns run automatically in our system and in the background. We speak before we think, and we withdraw before we reflect. We defend before we work to understand the situation or others. And afterwards, we explain it as choice. But here's the part we don't say out loud. When activation goes unnoticed, we repeat harm without intending to. Not always loudly, and not always with great drama, but fairly consistently. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone challenges your ideas. Not aggressively, just directly. But something shifts inside of you. Your chest tightens, your jaw sets, and your thoughts narrow. And before you realize it, you interrupt. You defend. You shut the conversation down. Later on, you might say to yourself or to others, I was just being clear with my intentions, or I had to stand my ground. Or perhaps you might even attack, like they were off base. But if you slow that moment down, there's a point, brief, almost invisible, where your system activated and you didn't notice it. Your awareness skills were not tuned, and your self-regulation tools were not practiced. That moment where the pattern took over, that's the moment that we're working to recognize. Activation is not abstract. It shows up in our bodies. You may notice a tightness, a constriction, a shallow or rapid breathing. That is key. Tension in your shoulders, a shift in your tone or your posture, a racing or even a narrowing or a tunneling of thoughts. These are all signals. These are all signs that you are in the midst of being triggered. These signals, they are not the reaction themselves. They are the precursor to the reaction. If activation goes unseen, it cannot be interrupted. If it cannot be interrupted, then the patterns in your life continue. Awareness does not eliminate activation, but it creates a point of observation inside the loop. And that point of observation is where regulation can begin. Without awareness, we see signal, pattern, response. But with awareness, it looks like signal, notice, possibility. This is not about stopping activation. It's not about trying to become something we can't. It's about choosing our response. It's about becoming calm in the midst of the storm. It's about learning to recognize that something is happening to me right now before it becomes action or speech or impact. That moment is small, but it is not insignificant because that is where harm can continue or change can begin. Every human being functions as a system of inputs and patterns and outputs. Activation is an input signal. Your patterns are how your system has learned to respond to the signal. If the signal is not noticed, the system defaults to its conditioning. Over time, this creates reinforcing loops. The same signal, the same response, the same outcome, repeated. Awareness introduces a new variable into that system. It does not erase the pattern, but it allows the system to become reorganized. With repeated awareness, response can be shifted and patterns can adjust. Your system can become more coherent. Self-regulation is not about control. It is not about suppression. It is not forcing yourself to act differently. Self-regulation begins with awareness because you cannot regulate what you do not recognize. And most people are not as aware in the moment as they might think they are. That's not failure, but it is responsibility. Today, I want you to take your journals and I want you to take a moment to work through this question. Where in my body do I notice activation before I react? And in what situations does this happen most often? How am I activated or triggered? Let's move into our breath work for today. And this is our opportunity to practice that space in between, to lean into space and expand it and recognize it for 5 minutes. 5 minutes each day, we work to see what the space looks like, to become familiar with it, so that when the moment of activity happens, we can pause and we can find ourselves in the space before we react. So let's get our feet on the floor. We're sitting up straight. Shimmy your hips. Place your hand over your heart. And what we're doing here is we're targeting, right? We're targeting our heart. Our heart has 50,000 neurons right at the top of it, just like a little brain. And it sends more signals up than signals are coming down from our brain. Our brain actually does not control the body systems. It's simply a processing tool, a logical processing tool. Your heart is an emotional processing tool. And the billion or so neurons that are in your gut, they're an intuitive processing tool. And together they make up your entire cognitive system. So today, let's align our emotional uh, cognitive tool with our logical cognitive tool. And we're going to do that through breath. We're targeting our heart, and we're going to breathe in 2 breaths with a big sigh out. So in, out. Again, in and exhale longer. All right, and now in for 5.5 seconds. Out. Soften your gaze. Soften your forehead. Soften your eyes. Soften your jaw. Soften your shoulders. And in your mind, begin an inventory of gratitude. Start small. I'm thankful for being here. I'm thankful for the day. I'm thankful for this moment of practice. Spiral out to something bigger. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for my family. You find your spiral. When your mind wanders, return to your breath in gratitude. Let's come back into the space with a large breath in. Exhale with a sigh. Again in. Exhale with a sigh. The reason for the gratitude in the beginning of your practice is because we are literally trying to connect the neurological functions that are happening within your heart with the neurological functions that are happening with your brain. And there are, at this point, literally dozens of studies that have been taking place, especially in the past 5 years, regarding what are called heart rate variability and the function that the heart has within our cognitive regulation. You're literally creating coherence between the heart brain and your mind, your brain. The positive emotional state that you're cultivating can be done in a variety of ways. I find that gratitude is the simplest. It's easy. You just start a gratitude list. And even though you might not actually feel it, eventually you do. Eventually your body does respond. And it's pretty amazing how that happens. You might be in a terrible place. You might be in a terrible mood. But simply by starting with gratitude, even though it's not something you feel, starting with, I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful for this moment. I'm thankful for this practice. I'm thankful for the sunrise. I'm thankful for this day. And spiral outward. Your body responds. And you end up finding that you begin to shift cognitively towards real gratitude. And that happens because you've aligned the two cognitive centers, your heart brain and your logical brain. And they are now in coherence. And that coherence can be read in the heart rate variability, which is found in the space in between heartbeats. There's an incredible amount of information or data there that can be read. You can cultivate that positive emotional state with a number of things. You can concentrate on a positive memory, a memory that brings you joy. This works fine. It'll do the same thing. I think there's an added benefit with gratitude. And the added benefit is that it's extremely easy in this world to focus on our problems, to focus on the things that aren't going right in our lives, especially when we're scrolling through, Instagram and news feeds. And the algorithm and those platforms are designed to give us snapshots of other people's lives. And some of those snapshots look better than ours. And we do what human beings are wired to do, which is to compare. That's a negative feedback loop. There's nothing positive about it. I mean, you might say, it's, it drives me. Sure, okay. Yeah, but what is your cognitive state in that drive? Is it to get more, to be better? One of the things that can be so vital and so important in our daily lives and in our practice is realizing that who you are right now, your sense of being in this moment, and how you cultivate it is the most important starting point. If you're driving towards a better self and a better life outside of yourself, you're constantly striving towards something that you'll never attain. You'll never bring satisfaction to yourself because you are doing in order to achieve a sense of being. You have to cultivate the sense of being and allow the doing to emerge out of that. That's why we start with practice. That's why we start with breath. that's why we start here. I hope you'll join me tomorrow at 5:30 a.m. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for being here.